sociality, a sociality, your ability to be sociable and mix well with other people.
Real life conversation with people, or a in-depth conversation, but to actually have a real life conversation and know how people are doing.
It would be the means of communication between friends that kind of sustain a friendship.
Yeah.
And build it.
I think basically it's empathy.
Empathy?
I think that's the heart of it. Empathy and effective engagement, so people that you're invested in, that you care about. And that's what everything else grows out of.
Friendship to me means loyalty, companionship, someone who shares the same drive in life as you.
Often friendship is just being together.
Sociality and friendship mean a variety of different things to different people. While some people contend that the relative lack of social cues on the internet renders online relationships more hostile and less fulfilling than traditional face-to-face relationships, others argue that internet relationships are just as fulfilling as face-to-face relationships. Parks and Floyd suggest that these two schools of thought represent two versions of internet relationships. One version is of relationships lost. The other is of relationships liberated and found. Although social media doesn't change the underlying concepts of friendship and sociality, it does require us to renegotiate the way we are communicating, with questions around immediacy, transparency, surveillance, the monetization of friendship, the changes in our vernacular, and mediation. Information and communications technology and social media have innately changed the way we communicate. It is a frame of meaning from within which we must inevitably function, and whose terms and constraints we will always negotiate. In our modern world, social discourse is no longer limited by time or space. A social person is considered to be someone committed to constructing online spaces of belonging which extend or may even substitute for face-to-face communications. This has created new divisions in society, especially between generations, as people who do not interact in online communities are regarded as being detached from their friendship groups. Not participating online, especially in a Western context, presents the individual as a strange and isolated figure, disconnected from society. Individuals can no longer easily negotiate their friendships from a purely face-to-face context. Even the simple element of organising to meet up is often negotiated on social media. Social media facilitates an almost inhuman capacity to interact with friends and share content or commentary, even with people at physically different locations. This technology is so pervasive that it has become an extension of our identities. It is not strange to request a Twitter ID or Instagram username. Rather, it seems strange if people don't have one. If you are not active in these online spaces, then you are not normal. Even the definition of doing things together has shifted to include sharing the same online content or participating in the same online discussion boards. Anyone with a personal computer or smart device can connect with a global audience. Furthermore, our attention and communication, already mediated by our own culture, is further mediated by the systems we interact with online and the culture of our internet environments. This is radically changing our worldview and the social groupings that would have more naturally mediated our communications in times past. None of us exists outside of culture, and as individuals, we understand the world we occupy, evaluate it, and act in it from within a set of understandings and frames of meaning and reference that we share with others. This poses the question as to whether or not users communicate freely online, or if they are, even unconsciously, following the expected codes of technology and the internet culture. Social media has created a hyper-reality in our sociality, whereby the technology is so pervasive that we are often unable to distinguish reality from the simulation of reality. An idea exists that, when communicating online, you can post anonymously and therefore reinvent yourself. What does this mean for friendship and sociality if communications are occurring under false pretense of who we actually are? Technology allows us to post content to our friends 24/7. It is a system prone to quantity over quality, which is often hearkened as the degradation of society. Our communication is more convenient and detailed, but it is also more expected and less questioned. However, it is key to remember that history sets a precedent for this increase of communication, constantly improving our means of staying in touch from a distance, from the use of slaves to letter writing to emails to modern social media platforms. Text-based communication is capable of providing complex social and cultural information. What may be perceived as the destruction of old patterns of sociality is more properly a reconstruction of how we interact with each other. Technology allows us to post content to our friends 24/7. It is a system prone to quantity over quality, which is often hearkened as the degradation of society. Our communication is more convenient and detailed, but it is also more expected and less questioned. However, it is key to remember that history sets a precedent for this increase of communication, constantly improving our means of staying in touch from a distance, from the use of slaves to letter writing to emails to modern social media platforms. Text-based communication is capable of providing complex social and cultural information. What may be perceived as the destruction of old patterns of sociality is more properly a reconstruction of how we interact with each other. There has always been an innate fear that relationships may be one-sided or less valued by the other party, but social media has hyper-realised the importance of immediacy in communication. In online communities, people often consider themselves to be held in less esteem if they do not receive an immediate response to their messages. This paranoia of silence has promoted the emergence of abundance of often superficial communications. This can create tension as each individual has a different expectation of what immediate may be. To some, it may mean a couple of minutes, whereas to others it may be a couple of days or even weeks. This tension is not new or unique to the internet, but has greater salience with the increased frequency of communications. There is an implicit assumption in many social media platforms that people will be happy with limited privacy and with having personal details shared with their community. This has created an unprecedented level of openness and transparency in many online public interactions, making known our friendships, likes and dislikes. Access to our private information is no longer entirely under our control, with both the platform and our friends being key players. Our private settings can be negated if our friends do not have the same settings or if they share a post with others. Likewise, updates in the licensing of different social media sites continually challenge what a reasonable expectation of privacy would be and reduce our ownership of our online identities. Despite this increased transparency, friends do not seem to surveil each other any more than before. Rather, similar bites of information are given and received more frequently. New media and our online relationships are as much the product as social, political and economic forces as they are of technological endeavour. Media not only influence the way in which we see and experience our world, but are products of the world we live in. Social media is never neutral. It is always mediated by the power brokers in society. In the West, big business is openly surveilling us and our interactions in order to make money off of our friendships and sociality. We, and who we communicate with, are an economic resource. The social significance of a technical invention only comes about once it has been selected for investment in production. Corporations make money by building brand into online friendships and sociality, persuading us that as others like the brand, we should too. This push to use products to define our online status monetizes our need to connect with others. Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms are more than just platforms of communication. They brand friendship by encouraging users to interact with the platform and not just each other. They create a need for inclusion by combining friendship with knowledge, creating an innate power dynamic in our online relationships. It's akin to a hostage situation, as to remove ourselves from these platforms limits our interactivity with our friends and isolates us from our natural communities. Choosing your online platform is important in establishing your online identity, as each platform carries connotations and expectations. Culture, not just technology, plays a significant role in the availability and desirability of choices and the organisation of discourse. We are also more willing than in the past to add people as friends on these platforms, liking and friending even loose acquaintances. Everyone and everything we know is mapped online, no matter how remote the connection. While we ourselves may know the difference, there is no hierarchy delineating the difference between an acquaintance, a celebrity, a business, or a real friend. They all exist parallel to each other. This links back to the importance of sociality and the ingrained belief that if we are not connected, we will miss out on something important. Although a hoax, recent reports stating that China rates their citizens based on whom they are friends with and what their friends are saying is frighteningly believable. The reality is that we ourselves are already rating a person based on their connections to others. When Facebook first launched, there was a race to have the most Facebook friends, regardless of whether you were friends with them or not. Moreover, the idea of unfriending someone or leaving a platform is almost, in Veal's words, the nuclear option of online friendships, and is another example of how we have renegotiated our communications. What makes communications real isn't where they happen, but the emotion they convey. Our online vernacular attempts to mirror our face-to-face communications. Pokes, likes, love, and emoticons mimic the ways we are perceived to behave in reality. Online, we don't have the use of facial expressions, body gestures, or tone of voice to communicate particular emotions, so we use these tools to get across the emotion behind a particular message. Bevan suggests that emoticons, in particular, may in fact enhance our communications even further by allowing us to express emotions that cannot be expressed any other way. As an example, the use of strings of emoticons, such as sad, sad, laugh, sad, illustrates the way we transition through emotions and the creative play we can engage in online. There are a wide variety of actions one can take online, e.g. memes, which combine words with imagery to create a particular idea, or acronyms such as AC, activity check, or AFK, away from keyboard. Terms that have cropped up to explain what is happening to the person on the other side of the computer screen. Facebook even has the option of writing in accents. Although this is currently limited to either speaking in pirate or your ordinary vernacular, this is an attempt to allow creative play and individuality to appear online. Each platform we communicate on represents a further extension of our sociality. Rather than changing the underlying concepts of friendship and sociality, social media extends them, enhancing and growing our way of communicating. The more platforms you share with someone, the more varied your means of communicating, and the more you are enabled to present different elements of yourself. The platforms you communicate via shape the way you formulate friendship, rather than altering the fundamental nature of friendship and sociality. However, it is key to note that Facebook operates differently to the rest of these platforms, as it crashes all these platforms and ways of communicating together onto one site. Walther argues that many of the differences between online and face-to-face communications diminish with time, and indeed we can see that happening now, as the variance between what we communicate online and what we communicate face-to-face is obviously reducing. It is common nowadays for things such as hashtags, emoticons, and acronyms to be referenced in speech, but these things were generated for social media. Likewise, people often write their gestures into their social media communications, such as shrugs or looks confused. The two ways of communicating shouldn't be seen as something different, as a then versus now scenario. Rather, they should be seen as complementary platforms that combined enhance our ability to socialise. With portable social media devices becoming commonplace, there is a growing sense of an integrated continuum of communication with seamless transitions between the two modes of expression. While our ways of communicating have diversified with the growth of social media, what is being communicated hasn't changed. The lack of quality in our posts is balanced by the growth in quantity. Many people who argue that social media is antisocial or causes a degradation of contact are likely making this judgment based on the extended friend list of people an individual would not normally talk to, rather than looking at conversations with the list of friends that an individual would purposefully contact on a day-to-day basis. Social media doesn't change our need to connect with each other or to feel a sense of closeness and camaraderie. We need to do things together, even if those things are conducted in different geographical locations. An example of this is my recent communications with a friend in the UK. She contacted me via social media and took me dress shopping with her as she wanted my opinion. While not as viscerally satisfying as face-to-face communication, this is a plausible way of maintaining a friendship which fulfills the already realised wants of friendship and sociality. Social media and our interactions with it are shifting as we speak. New technology comes out, the limitations of the technology are tested, and what is popular changes from one moment to the next. Social media is fluid and dynamic, but our expectations of friendship and sociality are largely unchanging. Friendship today is not so different to its meaning a generation ago. You have to have something in common, communicate frequently, empathise when needed, and share in the same experiences. No matter the medium used to communicate, friendship and sociality is still ultimately decided by the individuals involved. This is only a short glimpse into social media relationships mediated by my knowledge and experience. To understand it for yourself, you need to go out and critically address what you do online and ask yourself the question, has the way I communicate online changed? And is it something that needs to be renegotiated?
YouTube, Twitter, Facebook too. I feel I'm getting closer to you. We used to be strangers, but now that's not true, because I read and hear all about you. It does not matter if you don't reply. I know we're friends now, that's no lie. You always say good morning, hello and bye. I know where you go, how you feel and why. Do 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 do. Google Plus, Flickr, Spotify, so many out there for you to try. Put your life on the web and you will find like-minded people all have a good time. And ever since you entered my life, I don't feel alone anymore. So go on and YouTube, Twitter, Facebook me. That's the way to get closer, you see. We used to be strangers, but now that won't be. If you subscribe